Would any other candidate like to comment on that question?
What Terry has just articulated was an approach used by Ronald Reagan. It's called supply side or trickle-down economics. And George Bush, the aforementioned George Bush, who earlier I mentioned, and who said no new taxes and then brought in new taxes, he called that voodoo economics. And he's right. And since I have no expertise in the black arts or magic, I certainly will not be able to follow through on the Wild Rose proposal in that regard, because frankly, it can't be done under any principles of economics that I've understood or taken throughout my career. Thank you.
The Apprentice government would have us believe that 2% more from the profits of the largest multinational corporations on the planet would kill jobs. I'm sorry. If there's anybody that's benefited from the public education system, the public health system, the roads, the investment in infrastructure, it's the large corporations. And frankly, the largest income earners in this province have also benefited mostly from the public education system, the public healthcare system, and all the investments in infrastructure that we've all benefited from. There's nobody that should pay more tax or should be concerned about losing jobs with more tax than average Albertans who have been paying more than BC and Saskatchewan. We want to reduce the tax on those that earn under 50,000. We want to increase the tax on anybody earning over 100,000 and increase the large corporations to 12% from 10%. The New Democrats agreed with that. It's clear that we cannot move off oil revenue until we see alternate levels of income. And with all respect to the Wild Rose and to Mark Haladi and the PCs, we have to find some new generated revenue, and that would come from a real carbon tax, a linear industrial tax in the rural areas that needs to be shared with the cities, and the third one I've forgotten, but primarily a progressive tax instead of a flat tax.
Carbon tax, cap and trade would kill industry in this province. And you do not want to go down make sure that we have the highest standards of anything in the environmental industry in the world. We set the standards, and we will continue to do that as we go forward. What we also, exactly. What we have to do is make sure that we continue to work in the areas that we need to do. Research being one of them. Alberta is the largest, well, not the largest, but what we do have is we have 11% of Canada's population. We have over 17% of the Canada Excellence Research Chairs doing a lot of this research and making sure that we are the best place to do this, and we have the cutting edge technologies being created here and implemented in our industries across the province as we go forward. Thank you.
This is to Mark Haladi and to others who want to respond. If the only new income is from myself, the little person in the mirror, not from downturned oil and not from corporations, how will new programs, schools, better hospitals, etc. be paid for? Mark?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to take the next 3 years to get the spending under control so that we don't push this economy into a recession. Very important. Over the last 6 months, we've watched the price of oil go from $100 down to $50 a barrel. That certainly has hurt our economy. Diversifying, like the last question, is a big piece of making sure that as we go forward, we're going to see other sources of revenue from other companies, creating jobs in other areas so that we will have jobs for the people who are out here right now and don't have, may have seen layoffs. We will see those economies grow, and as that happens, those are going to create revenue sources for us to help fund the things as we're going forward. We want to make sure we keep a strong economy going forward and everyone has jobs. That is the fundamental so that we know that we can raise our children and our families and make sure that we're strong going forward. Thank you very much.
The result is all around us. We've seen growing inequality. We've seen a decline in our education services. We've seen chaos in our healthcare system. We've seen more and more people left behind. Markets not working. And Albertans know that. And what I'm hearing on the doors is that they're going to vote anybody but Conservative in this election.
Not surprisingly, I'm in agreement with my Liberal colleague on that last point. But look, I understand the predicament that the provincial government is in. It's been in power for 44 years. It has a new leader with old policies and largely still a caucus left over from Ms. Redford. Their ideas, frankly, are out of touch and they're out of plans. They don't have anything new to say. And when they do, they put it out there like the infamous charitable taxation donation with charities, where they were going to cut that in half, and oh, lo and behold, guess what? That's going to do enormous damages to charities. And so Mr. Prentice and his government runs out in front of the parade and says, oh, wait a minute, we're not really going to do that. That's why you can't trust them, folks. They've been in power too long. The time has come for change, and a change that develops and builds our economy based on jobs, I say to my Liberal friend, that are coming from people being employed.
The province of Alberta spends a lot more per capita than all other provinces across Canada. What that basically says is that we do have capacity within the budgets today. We have capacity in the budgets to be able to build the schools that we need, build the seniors care facilities we need. But what we need to do is be able to allocate the monies and prioritize the monies where we actually need them. Not on wasteful programs, not on say corporate handouts, but rather do the things that are right for Albertans.
Let me say that while we do have spending problems,
Next question. The successful candidate of this riding will be representing students at SAIT, Polytech. Where do you stand on tuition increases, and how will you fund the post-secondary institution in the future?
Pick me, Mommy.
Well, now I have to speak well of the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, Polytech, and I'm pleased to do so. Look, I'm going to tell you something that I've learned from some information I've received just lately. It is quite likely that after the election, the provincial government, the Advanced Education Department, will say to institutions, we are considering lifting the tuition cap. This, of course, will be done after the election, not before, for reasons that are abundantly evident. If that information is correct, and it comes from some pretty good sources, then once again, students are going to be asked to bear an increased part of their education on top of their student loads and, of course, the many loans that they have to take out. We have students both at SAIT, University of Calgary, Mount Royal, everywhere that are working 2 jobs. Now, that's not the way to do things. Yet, provincial government will not increase our grants, will cut us back as they have continued to do so, will continue to jettison programs in a bid to pay for them. But to bear the cost of education and increase the tuition and raise the tuition caps, as I believe will be done, is unconscionable to me.
Back in order again?
Yeah, back in order.
Oh, okay. Just check. Well, you know, Mark, I appreciate what you have to say, and unfortunately, I just can't agree with any of that, okay? What we have is something that they're creating a fear. I don't know that that's going to happen. I'd love to hear your sources. I mean, that would be very interesting over there. Sure, you betcha. I don't think that's going to happen. And if it does, that's something that has obviously been going and negotiated between the Department of Advanced Education and the different universities and post-secondary institutions that we have. As I said earlier, right now we are the highest funded universities from public funding in Canada as we speak. And that's something that I would like to see maintained. I'll have to hear more about this from Mark maybe as we go forward and see what those numbers are supposedly going to be. We also have the transfer system that works so fantastically right now. Our students can go from institution to institution and get those courses transferred so that they can have the best education system going forward. That's what it's all about, making sure our university students have the best education so they can contribute to our workforce and be part of it going forward. I think that's my time, Mark. James.
Post-secondary is our future. We know that the education system is going to create the future that we all want. The other Liberals would reduce the tuition fees. I often remind people at the doors that I paid $700 a term for medical school. That was only 35 years ago, and we've gone up tenfold. We're leaving young people with huge debts, tremendous stresses. We need to shift more from loans to more of the grants that we had before. We need to ensure that we have the infrastructure and the support, steady, stable support for post-secondary institutions. Surely that's more important than the lowest tax regime in the country by $11.6 billion. Remember that figure. We gave back $11.6 billion more than any other province in the last year. And now we're going into $7 billion in debt. And many young people are not able to get into university because there aren't enough spaces, not enough professors, and they can't afford it. That's unacceptable in the wealthiest province in the country. You need to support post-secondary along with other levels of education and make it more accessible, not less.
As I said earlier, the Wildwood Party certainly believes that post-secondary education is a valuable resource for us. Without that, we will not have a developing and growing economy. One of the things that the Wildwood Party will do for post-secondary students is to implement a student loan forgiveness program for up to 50% for students students who are studying in areas of shortage of labor skills. The other thing that we would also do is to ensure that the tuition cap freeze stays in place so that, again, the burden of education is not on the students themselves. The third thing that we would also do is ensure that the mobility of the students going to school here can actually move across the province easily to ensure that the credits they acquire here are not having to be reacquired if they choose to go to another school across the province.
The first questions that we're getting, this is really diverse, but I think it has a very pertinent point of view. Quote, in light of the 25 deaths in farm-related accidents, what role would you take in ensuring farm safety?